Hi, Phantoms fans, and on behalf of the Peterborough Phantoms, I'd like to welcome our new head coach, Ashley Tate, signed on a multi-year contract. Welcome aboard, Ash.
Cheers, thank you.
I think Phantoms fans will know Ashley from most recently from being with the Bees and an associate coach with the Bees last year, and player coach, head coach, and director of hockey operations with the Bison. But Ash, you've got a storied career. The number of games you've played, the honours you've achieved, fifth highest GB appearance maker. We're really looking forward to seeing you take over. For Phantoms fans, I thought it'd be quite nice just for you to start by perhaps giving an outline of your hockey history, the background you've had, and your journey that brings you here.
Yeah,
in less than 20 minutes.
Yeah, kind of a lot of games, a lot of years. Yeah. So no, I grew up in Nottingham, which very familiar with the Peterborough rink through those years. Left Nottingham 21, went to Hull for a couple of years, which was then the BNL, which I think Peterborough were a part of. Then back to Nottingham when it was Super League days. Was there for 3. Then I went to Coventry, which was back to sort of BNL, which then became the Elite League. So that was 5 years there. Sheffield for a couple of years, abroad to Italy, back to Sheffield, and then back to Coventry for kind of another 3 years, and then off to Basingstoke. So yeah, kind of been around, and there's a few other clubs, a few games for Milton Keynes in there, Belfast Giants. So yeah, kind of adding another team to the list, I guess.
yeah, and I think probably when I think of your career and looking back at stats, I probably associate you most with Coventry. Is that what you feel?
Yeah, fair enough. Obviously, it was there for 9 years, albeit not in a row. But yeah, I think with the success we had when I was there in both spells, to be fair, the first spell more so, the second spell, that's what people do remember, I guess.
Yeah. So in terms of the Peterborough coaching job, Slava left on the 6th of May, and we're doing this interview on the 6th of June. So it's exactly a month later. Perhaps if you could explain to us, the fans and the media, what's led you to the role and brought you. Obviously, Basingstoke returned to the league, but you're moving up here.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I think John initially got in touch before that. He obviously knew kind of what was going on in the background. And I didn't know John very well, knew him a little bit, but it was, he painted a picture, and he set things out and kind of gave me the background of the club and the infrastructure and how, what they want to do and how they want to do it. And I'd always, since going to Basingstoke, obviously played Peterborough a lot of times. I've known Slava since we played together in Hull way back when, pushing 20, nearly 30 years ago. And yeah, kind of where the club was and how he played and just sort of the ethos, I guess, was, I don't think envious isn't the right word, but there was definitely some admiration from my side moving into a coaching role and kind of seeing what was being done. So yeah, this is, I talked to other coaches and, kind of, I think Slav's held in quite high regard. So, it's a job to kind of step into that role. The way he thinks about the game and views it and gets his teams to play is probably slightly different to how I am. And I think, once we get into the season, people will probably see the differences, where I come from on it. So yeah, it's hopefully we can kind of turn that into kind of maintain that success that the club have had for the past couple of years, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get perhaps to style of play and what your team might look like in a moment. You spoke to John Kinniston, and did you get in touch with anyone else around the club? I was looking at. I mean, obviously, from our point of view, Luke Ferrara was a star at Coventry, but your tenure wouldn't have crossed over with Luke, I don't think. But I wonder if you spoke to any of the senior guys on the team.
I didn't, to be fair, and I obviously know, like, Tom's obviously from Nottingham, Tom Norton,
Yeah,
but I didn't. I kind of looked at it, and it was, I sort of made the decision based on the conversations I'd had with John. I already knew he'd kind of given me the information on what the team was shaping up like, who they were talking to, who was already confirmed, and probably I'm more familiar with the more senior players. The younger guys not as much because I just haven't got to see them, but I've seen the more senior guys a lot more frequently. Um, and the talent that I saw on that sort of list of guys was pushing me forward um, to making a decision, really.
yeah. Are you anticipating bringing staff with you? I mean, obviously Slava was a bench coach on his own, and I suspect you're a bench coach now, aren't you? You're not a player coach any longer.
No, that's it. No, I don't think this body could sustain that anyway. It didn't a few years ago. It definitely wouldn't now. But
No.
yeah, I'm looking at people to work with, who's going to fit that role. So yeah, there's conversations happening. It's not an easy role to sort of take on by yourself. There's an awful lot going on through games, and when you're trying to manage the bench and see what's going on the ice, and then even sometimes you just need to sort of vent ideas and voice opinions, and you just need a sounding board. Otherwise, you'd go insane quite quickly, I think, some weeks. So yeah, there's definitely I'm kind of looking at possibilities on that. So yeah, there's more to come.
Yeah. You touched on it a moment or two ago, but and suggested that perhaps the style of play that we might anticipate at some point down the stretch would look slightly different, perhaps to what we've been used to. And obviously Slava was in place for 11 years. So one of the questions I thought about asking you was what does an Ashley Tate team look like? What style? What do you look for?
Yeah, I think just if we look at kind of when I started coaching, I think the one thing that I sort of demanded of my players then, and I'm the same now, is our work ethic and our work rate. And we make sure we show up every night and we don't take nights off. And it, sometimes the results don't go your way, but that's if you've kind of given an honest effort and you've put the work in, sometimes you're not going to win every game. Um, so sometimes you can. I don't like the term accept, but that's how it happens sometimes. You make sure you sort of show up every night, and you sort of don't leave any questions being asked in that area, I suppose.
And you mentioned knowing, particularly, I guess, through your time at Basingstoke and last year with the Bees, but you'll and obviously from way back, you'll know Peterborough as a hockey town and the rink. What are your reflections on Peterborough as an environment to play in?
Yeah, I mean, I. It's funny because there's a story from when I think I was 15. It was my first year with the Panthers, and could have been 15 or 16, but it was in the days of Danny Shea, and I think Doc Durdle was there, and we got an absolute hiding. I think it was 9-1, and it was quite a hostile environment. And it's a small rink anyway, and the crowd are on top of you. And I obviously was still at school at that point, and we sort of knew what was coming on the Tuesday night practice. And my dad's rule was always, you don't go to school, you don't go to practice. And I was ill, and I didn't go to school, so consequently no practice. And then on the Thursday, I walked in, and some of the more senior players, I won't mention any names, but I was sort of questioned as to where were you Tuesday, and I said I was ill. They said, I don't care. So that Sunday happens, then you turn up on Tuesday, kind of thing. So yeah, that hiding in Peterborough stays with me now because I still tell the story. It was probably the choice of words are slightly different because that's how it was then. But
well, hopefully we'll see the Phantoms dish out plenty of hidings during the course of the year.
yeah, nice.
I mean, the rink it's old. It's got its character, if you want to describe it in that way. But I think when it's rocking, it's a really great place to watch hockey, and the atmosphere can be unreal, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I said, I've been on the wrong end of that on numerous occasions. So yeah, I think the rink is something that it's not a great rink to go on the road. As a road team, you're not comfortable. The dressing rooms aren't the best. It's always cold, and you've been sat on a bus for 2-3 hours, sometimes longer. So it's yeah, they're the advantages that we sort of need to home in on and
Yeah.
make teams' lives difficult when they come in.
And knowing what you said earlier on, I think the Phantoms fans will love, as they have done under Slava, but a hard-working team. You've got to work every shift and put teams under pressure because away form perhaps a little less so.
Yeah, I think to be. I mean, I would always, when playing against Peterborough, you always knew what you were going to get, and there was always a consistency there. And I think last year, some of the results on the road, I was really surprised at. I mean, I haven't seen the games, and sometimes you don't know the full story because you're not there. But yeah, I think consistency is something that I'll talk about and sort of harp on. That we have to have it every week. You can't take weeks off, and there's no point being, perfection in hockey doesn't really exist, but there's no point being really good one weekend and awful the next.
Yeah, I think British ice hockey seems to change every year. There's always some new rule or some change, and obviously this league's changing in the coming year with the possibility of the addition of imports. It looks to me like the league, with the additions that teams are making across the league, looks like it's going to be increasingly competitive. That's going to give us some challenges, I suspect.
I think, well, it's the same for everybody with it. I think last year showed for me. I mean, I was on a team that struggled with injuries, but I can't give those guys enough credit. They came in and worked their backsides off. We went up to Solway with I think 11 guys, and it just to be fair, our record against the top three teams was I think they dropped more points against us than any other teams.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people who love their stats will possibly correct me or give me the correct version of that. But it just showed you it doesn't matter who's playing who, whether it's a first place team, last place team, you've got to show up every night.
Yeah, well, without any shadow of a doubt. And we talked just before we started recording, about when you got contracts signed and such like. And John's obviously talked to you about the kind of players you've been talking to. Have you got in mind some? Obviously, I'm not expecting you to talk names here, but ideas of additions or kind of some knowledge of the current roster.
Yeah, I mean, I said this to John and the other directors. It's more about having the right person that's going to fit in with an already very well established dressing room. So that person's they've got to be fit in with the ethos and kind of buy into what's already there. Obviously, there's a couple of guys from last year that have moved on for one reason or another, and the rink lends itself to someone who's got some size. That's not it's not a guarantee, but it helps. And it's finding someone who's going to fit in with what we're trying to do and be a good teammate, and make the right contributions.
Yeah, for sure. No pressure, but what does a successful season look like for you and the Phantoms this year, do you think?
Tough one given finalists again last year, playoff winners previous to that. It's it's I don't want to, like you just said, place pressure. There are sort of indicators that we need to hit to deem it successful. But the other side, I've sat in front of owners who said if we're sixth place and the building is full, then I'm probably going to be happy. If we're first place and it's not, then there's going to be questions, kind of thing. For me, it's sometimes it's not how you win; it's getting 2 points. If you can be consistent and pick up points when you're probably not at your best, that's when you sort of you're heading in the right direction. You're doing the right thing.
I think it's an interesting, yeah, interesting kind of league, isn't it? Because teams are adding, and Phantoms probably mid budget, mid kind of attendance wise in terms of what we get in the rink, but performance has been pretty good, and I guess those expectations put pressure on the players, the coaching staff, and the owners.
Yeah, I think probably different pressures depending on which group you pull out of that sentence, I guess. But every player wants to win. There's no, they want to be successful. It's 8 months and it's a long season, and at times you're going to sit and question whether what you're doing is right, whether the methods, the systems, and I'm sure some guys when they're trying to sleep on the floor of a bus on Sunday night because they've got to be up for work in the morning, they're probably questioning that decision as well. But when you look at it, you play because you probably love it and you want to win. Everybody, whether you're a Premiership footballer earning ridiculous money, you still want to play every weekend, and that's what drives people, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, thanks for your time. I think we're probably drawing towards the end. Perhaps I could ask you for a final message for the Phantoms fans before we sign out tonight.
No, I just think it's good. Things are going to take a bit of time. As I said, how I want to do things or my style, my system's probably slightly different, but we can only be judged by what we do. So yeah, kind of give us that chance, get behind us, and hopefully good things to come.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that the Phantoms fans will be really excited to see the team in the new year, and a change of house is always interesting to look for, and I think it'll get people talking and get people down to the rink, and there can't be too much better than that. So Ash, thanks for your time tonight. We're really grateful, and good luck going forward. I'm sure that we'll see bits on media and get ready for the season as the signings come in.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. Yeah, cheers.